Thinking about moving to Houston, Texas? You are in the right place. I've got Armando Espinosa right beside me. Say hello, Armando.
Howdy, Armando Espinosa here from Houston, Texas.
This is Wanna Move There, the show dedicated to all humans. Armando, I used to say Central PAans because I was targeting at people here that wanted to move somewhere else, but then I thought it could apply to anybody across the planet that wants to move to Houston, Texas, or wherever we're talking about. So it's the show devoted to all humans, giving them the information they need to decide whether or not they want to move somewhere else outside of the area they live in. I am your host, DerekBicksler, realtor of 15 years. I grew up on the hill, as we call it, here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, went to Mechanicsburg High School in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Go Wildcats. And I went up to Penn College in Williamsport, you guessed it, Pennsylvania. So I'm born and raised here, been here my whole life. Had a few sales jobs before I started selling real estate 15 glorious years ago. If you need to buy or sell a house, please call me, text me, email me, throw a rock through my window, send a carrier pigeon, whatever you need to do. We still need inventory fairly badly here in December. It's dying down a little bit, and we'll talk to Armando about what it's like in his market in a minute. A reminder that whether you are watching live or on a replay, ask a question in the comments, or if you know Armando or myself, hit us up in the comments and say hello and say where you're watching from. And the last reminder is that all the replays will be on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and all the audio podcast places. So wherever you like to get your content, this will be living there. And without further ado, I will bring in Armando Espinosa, realtor in Houston, Texas. Say hello while I bring up your bio. Say hello to everybody and tell us the last movie that you watched.
Howdy, it is Armando Espinosa in the beautiful Buffalo Bio City, Space City, as you may have heard it, because we have NASA here. And yes, I am Houstonian through and through, and I love my beautiful city because we come together in times of need and in times of struggle and love. And I am a real estate agent here in Houston and Greater Houston and surrounding areas. And yeah, I just love everything about it, Derek. And I thank you so much for having me on, telling everybody in the YouTube world and the world about my beautiful city and state.
What was the last movie you watched?
Oh, last movie. Well, I love Braveheart, so that's one of the I've seen it so many times, but that's always my go-to movie that my I guess my cable network always puts up to suggest a Braveheart movie or some kind of action and pack. So I'm like, what the heck? Let's watch that again, maybe for the 8,000th time. So I'm okay with that.
We all have a few movies like that we'll watch anytime it's on TBS or one of those channels that replays movies. You'll watch it, and that's a pretty good one. Do you like Gladiator and other ones, kind of similar ones?
Gladiator, any type of action like war or fighting type where they have a cool little story like Gladiator. I like the war movies, like Saving Private Ryan's a really good one with Tom Hanks and. But yeah, it's and definitely some sporting movies as well. So
if you like the war stuff, this is not a movie, but a new I think it's World War II in color or something. It's called on Netflix. It's a series. Yeah. It's a documentary, but I got into it. It's like 8 episodes long or something. Wow. Pretty awesome. You might like that. And as you mentioned, you grew up in Houston, Texas, so born and raised. Nobody better to learn about Houston than from somebody that's native and still living there. You went to Clear Lake High School. I'm guessing people there know what Clear Lake High School. What's the mascot?
The Falcon, the Mighty Falcon.
So all right, the Mighty Falcon.
It kind of looks like the Atlanta Falcons, but we had the logo first before they came in. But yeah, Clear Lake is a great town. It's a thriving little city. We had a bunch of cow pastures. Now that it's turned into neighborhoods. We're close to Kima, the Kima Boardwalk, where we have just a fresh market of everything that comes in from the Gulf of Mexico. And not only the regular catfish, we have the red snapper, we have tuna, mahi, anything you want to see in a fine dining restaurant that you can go into the market area and pick up for a quarter of the price than at regular stores. So
Wow.
But
And
yeah.
when I bring up the map, all that'll make sense because I guess I didn't realize how close you were to the Gulf. I kind of know generally, but when you don't live somewhere, you don't pay much attention to the place. So, admittedly, like the stereotypical American, I don't know much about geography, and I'm enjoying learning about this. You went to University of Houston, so you also went to college in Houston, and
Yep.
you went for exercise science and physical therapist assistant. Your favorite color? Thank you for changing it up. Forest green, not
Yes.
blue. Forest green in particular. You like all greens, or you like that
I
darker
like
forest
that
green?
darker green. And the reason why I like the green, Derek, is because I'm a big mountain biker and you're yourself are an adventurer, right? I always seen your great Instagram pictures of you're in, some kind of nature and forest. And I'm the same way. I love nature. I love anything that, I could get dirty and explore, especially in my mountain bike and hiking with my best friend Tito, and my rescue dog that I found about 4.5 years ago. So we just have a great time. So forest green reminds me of just being out in nature, kind of getting away from the busyness of the city, kind of the background I have here, which I still love. But we also have great green space here in Houston, Texas.
That's great. I'm kind of the same way. If you ask me, my official favorite color is still red, I guess, because that was always kind of like my favorite color. But I think it's changed to sky blue and more of a forest green. Just that I love a tree with a nice sky blue behind it. It's probably my favorite scene right there. So I'm with you on the forest green, and thanks for changing it up from the blue for once. And your favorite food is Texas barbecue, which definitely makes sense. Is Texas barbecue a certain way different from like a Carolina barbecue, or what makes it different than somewhere else?
Well, I've had Carolina barbecue. It's been a while, but something about Texas barbecue is just so tender here. I mean, all the Texas barbecue spots do it right. And once you get into your Texas barbecue, then you can kind of niche down. There's like spicy, there's the smoky, there's like where it's burnt end on the sides, where it's very very moist on the inside. And especially they have to have great barbecue beans with a little bit of onions or maybe some jalapenos in it. And of course, the potato salad. You can't forget about the potato salad, mac and cheese. But of course, the Texas brisket is great. The sausage links. Oh my gosh, the dino ribs from the cow. I mean, it's you can definitely go to a nice little spot maybe, and you'll see a pop-up tent next door to it if it's at like a cafe or maybe a bar that does not serve food, that they'll have a tent. And trust me, go meander to those tents because those little local spots do some of the best barbecue. Yep.
Agreed. We don't have as many as there, I'm sure, but we have a few of those places around town that kind of pop up in a parking lot somewhere, and usually those are the best places to go. And then after a while, they get a spot and start a regular place, and then sometimes it goes downhill once they start mass producing it. You should go
Yeah.
back to the parking lot and just make that one thing: wings on Saturdays. It was the best wings you could ever get anywhere on Saturdays. Do you have a go-to thing that you get when you go for barbecue? Is it brisket or ribs or what is it?
Man, it's everything. So I usually go get the chopped brisket. I'm sorry, the sliced brisket in a sandwich, because if you get chopped, it's all in little pieces. The slice, you get maybe 3 or 4 slices. It stays in the hamburger bun. And I definitely get a pile of onion rings on it, but not like the fried onion rings, like the fresh pickles, and make sure I have enough barbecue sauce. I'm a condiment freak, so I got to have my barbecue sauce, hot sauce, and whatever sides that I get on it. But yeah, that's my go-to, the sliced barbecue brisket sandwich.
Nice. I think it might be lunch for both of us right after this episode. I didn't eat yet, so this is getting me psyched up for that. And I don't eat much meat, maybe like once a month, if that. But it's usually when I eat it, I go to a place that has closed down. Like I said, they should have stayed on a corner. But
Yeah.
it was a pile of meat. I would just get there. It was like the sampler thing, and I could get like 3 meals out of this thing, but I would just sit there until I got the itis from eating too much meat. So I will eat meat, but it's got to be some bomb. Can't say bomb butt meat for me to do it. Totally. And on vacation, if I came to Texas, I might eat it every day while I was there.
I'll get you a Texas barbecue roadmap to hit up all the great local spots. So we have a
Nice.
lot of good restaurants here.
Yeah, yeah. And I would love to Houston. Nothing but good things about there, which we're going to talk about. You do have a pet, Tito, like you said, your dog who is your companion and doing a lot of things. He can't ride a bike. You go hiking with him. Did you say that?
He does. He does have his own bike buggy. I got him a bike burly he sits in, and it's actually made for a little child. And there was one up for sale because they're kind of expensive. They're like at least $300. That's made especially for a dog. But there was this neighbor that was trying to get rid of it for $20, and I was like, it was big enough for him, so I attached the little bike buggy to the back of my wheel, like if I was gonna haul a kid, and I would just put him in there, and it has a little like plastic thing. If we've gotten caught in the rain before, it keeps him dry, but of course I get wet. But but yeah, he when we go out on the trails, I usually go to Austin, Texas. And Paceman Park is a beautiful place. That was the last time I really took him out there to go just ride, and he'll run right behind me in my wheel. Also, Smithville, Texas, Rocky Hill Ranch is one of the main hotspots for mountain bikers that have races there. Double Lake Recreation is about an hour north of us. It's part of the Huntsville State Park, Sam Houston State Park, and so. Sam Houston is one of the leaders of Texas and became the leader of Houston. So that's kind of a little history. But yeah, Sam Houston is about an hour away, and they have a big just forest area. And here in Houston, we have what is called Memorial Park is kind of in our central area. And we have one of the largest green spaces in America. It stretches really far. I want to say it's bigger than Central in New York, whatever Central Park or whatever it's called. It's one of the largest in America. Not a lot of people know that, and it stretches super long. And we have trails. And right now they're building a land bridge that goes over Memorial Drive, which is one of the main streets that gets through town. So, yeah.
Huh. That sounds awesome. And we'll talk about, maybe I'll look up while we're going here, the criteria for that. It's a park, one of the biggest parks within a city. Is that the criteria?
Correct. Yeah. And that stretches from a little bit, I want to say, well, a lot of bit of west of downtown, but I want to say it's only maybe a 3-minute drive west of downtown. You take Memorial Drive, and it's right off of Memorial Park. And it has been owned by a family in Houston from when Houston was originated, and they put in a clause, in the family clause, and to keep it open to the public, right? So because if you sell land, it's private, right? So they wanted to keep it within the city for everybody to enjoy. So that's one of the main historic things, and that's what's probably kept the green space up, because of course when you have a big city, you have businesses that want to come up, especially these big skyscrapers right behind me. So but that's a really good preservation. And we have a conservation, it's called the Arboretum, that conserves the park, make sure everything's growing well, puts up cool little hiking sections. You can go in, hike. I believe you could hike for free, or you just pay like a $2 day pass. It's super cheap. And you can hike within that Memorial Park area. Bring your dogs too. So,
Huh. That's really awesome. You can take Tito over there. I'm sure it's a great amenity in the real estate closer to that. The closer you get to it, maybe it costs more, and that sounds awesome. And we'll talk about it a little bit more here in a bit. What did you mention? You said you had the dog. We said no kids and not married, single and ready to mingle. And we'll talk about the nightlife maybe here in a bit on the what to do. But I don't see nightlife under your hobbies, so I'll read off your hobbies here: cycling, yoga, salsa dancing. So that's kind of nightlife there. Salsa dancing, competitive cycling, sleeping, reading. I like the sleeping one, and overcoming challenges on a daily. We all do that, especially as realtors, I'm sure. So tell me about salsa dancing. You always been a dancer?
I started, like 5 years ago. It seems like it was like a couple weeks ago. And, I just totally enjoyed it. I always had a little itch to learn the basics, right? And I was dating a lady, and she had wanted to learn together, as a couple. And I was like, I just said yes to her, and she's like, great, lessons starting in a couple weeks. And I totally forgot about it until like 2 days prior. She reminded me, hey, like lessons, they're gonna start on Thursday. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I said yes to that. And she said, yeah. I'm like, okay, now I gotta go, which is fine. I totally and I stepped into it, and I saw it as a challenge, and I became actually pretty good. And we have what is called the Houston Salsa Congress, which is one of the largest dance expos in the city, if not the country, which everyone from around the world, not just the country, come up to Houston at the West End in Memorial City area and just have a 4-day dancing extravaganza, from workshops to just our socials start from 8 p.m. till 5 a.m. dancing straight. And in between the days, there's the workshops and all different types of workshops, not just salsa, but then there's bachata, there's the cha-cha-cha, there's kazomba, and all these other crazy cool dances. And there's leaders that go in and teach as a class. And then about from 6 to 8 are performances. So that's where we perform. And I was able and lucky enough to be picked by my dance studio to perform at this big salsa congress. And I performed in front of at least 500 people on a stage. And to be able to perform, we've learned a 2-minute dance routine. Dance recital sounds like I'm in 4th grade again, but a dance routine. And that usually takes about 3 months to do a 2-minute dance routine with a partner and different individual, that we call them shines or step routines that we do ourselves. And so that's pretty amazing too. So that was fun.
So on Dancing with the Stars, when they learn a new dance like every week, that is pretty nutso that they're doing that?
Yeah. When they compress that into a week, or I would say 2 weeks, that's just full throttle. You're learning like at least 10 hours. Maybe 8 hours, but yeah, those 2-minute, 3-minute routines, to get really prepared, that took us 3 months. And we're the student dancers. We were kind of the newbies that coming into the studio to present, the student dance team. So that's what we were. So
fun. And it's interesting. So you are Latino background, obviously.
Yes.
So you didn't, but this is a recent thing. It's not like this is something your parents or whatever did.
No. Yeah, my background is Mexican American. But yeah, this is something I picked up from along the way, and just I believe everyone should have a skill in dancing. If say you're at a party, if you're at a wedding, especially weddings, they put on salsa dancing, and it's a fun thing. But when someone actually knows the basics and the steps and how to stay on time and rhythm, then I think that's a really good skill to have. So
yeah, it is always nice to have at least one little dance move. Everybody's got like one thing they can break out every time they get into a dancing situation.
Whatever.
Do my one move and then I'm out.
That's right.
Thank you. Good night. And then before we move on to Houston, I got to ask you, because I'm a mountain biker, obviously, and a lot of people know me for rock climbing, but mountain biking is my first love. An aside, I was without my bike for 9 months because I was waiting for a part, but we won't get into that. I was really, really dying. So my rock climbing went up, but I was dying. So I have it back now. But so you are mountain biking there. Is it like single track, rail trails? What are you doing?
So the Memorial Park is single track, and it's 2-way, which is a little scary, but we try to stay in one direction. So Memorial Park has some really good trails. You could hike and bike there. And there's also Terry Hershey Park, which is out by the Energy Corridor. It's the west part of Houston. And there's another little section where you can hike and bike there as far as trails. I want to say it's just big enough for single track. I haven't been there in a while. I know they had changed up. We have a lot of dams here because we have a lot of the irrigation and erosion and stuff. So they did a lot of work. Last time I heard, they're still riding out there. It's called the Ant Hills, because there's these little like BMX kind of jumps that look like hills. And then we have I'm sorry, not Brooks. My mind is blanking. But it's in this south side. It's in Santa Fe, Texas, and and I'm trying to remember the name. I used to go train on there a lot. It's by League City. It's south of League City, Santa Fe, and I really wish I can remember it. But that's another section where you can take your mountain bikes, and that's also more like big enough for Jack Brooks. That's what it's called, Jack Brooks Park. And so that's big enough for a single track. So that was where I started cycling in the beginning. And but then again in Huntsville State Park, that's where you can spread out. It's it's two-way. It's big enough for 2 or 3 cyclists to go. Bigger acreage and all that. So.
Yeah. Gotcha. The bi-directional ones, the single track ones, are they? Is that like engineered by IMBA or what? By a club locally or?
Yeah. It gets taken care of by Gorba. Gorba is the Greater Off-Road Recreation Biking Association, I think, or it's pretty much they take care of the Houston trails. And so I pay a fee, to be a member of it. And those fees go to, keeping the equipment up, keeping the trails groomed, any type of legislation, say the city wants to come in and do X, Y, and Z to the trails. We got to make sure that it's in the best interest of both parties. So, but yeah, that's good. And indeed for them to, keep the trails well groomed and everything. So.
Yeah, we have the same thing here, Samba, Susquehanna Area Mountain Biking Association, and then they're affiliated, and you might be too, with IMBA, who is kind of the overseer, and if you need an engineer, they're the kind of the ones that send an engineer to build a new trails or whatever. But I'm also a member. I pay the money. Do you ever go to the work days? I'm always like, I need to go to those work days and lend a hand, but
I know, to be honest, I've tried. Maybe a couple years ago, even during the pandemic last year, I would just go out there with some loppers, and I'm by myself, I'm outside, I'm with my dog, so it's perfect time. I did a lot of grooming and trimming, and because that's all I did, and I was on my mountain bike or road bike, and we just I just did it myself. I let the trail steward know what I was doing, how many hours I was going to be there, and what I did. So yeah.
Nice. Well, you did something. That's more than me. I think I pushed a tree over once because it was about to fall right on, and I kind of got it and pushed it over, a dead one. It was kind of fun. I don't know if you're allowed to do that technically, but I did it. Whatever.
But I do need to get on that pay dirt. It's called pay dirt. So just to get that trail work done. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So here I will, and we'll talk about the landscape here actually as the first thing. But before we do that, and I got to click share screen and bring this in here, I got to bring up my map so everybody knows where Houston is before we start talking about what it's like there. Everybody can see my Google Globe here, and you can see the pin of Houston, and it's right there on the Gulf of Mexico in Texas, of course. And what's this bay here? What's that bay called? Or is that a bay? What is that?
I believe that's Matagorda.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Galveston Bay.
Galveston, Trinity.
Yeah, Galveston Bay. There's Matagorda somewhere. But yeah, the main one is Galveston Bay. Is where the the fish markets are at. Kemah. That's kind of close where I grew up in Clear Lake. Clear Lake's only about a good 10-minute drive from Kemah. That's where all the fish market boats come in to unload all the seafood they got for the day. And great restaurants, a lot of rebuild. Of course, we have our weather here, and we were just talking about earlier the hurricane season, so that we're not we could definitely rebuild buildings really quickly here. So.
That's good to know. And there's been a lot of construction in Texas in general, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And I will read the blurb here. Actually, it is like you touched on it a little bit. You have a little bit nicer weather than we have here right now. It's 73 degrees going by the Googles. It is cloudy there right now, it says, but 73 degrees, which is definitely a good 20 to 30 degrees warmer than it is here right now. You are an hour behind us. And the quick facts little blurb from Google goes as such. Houston is a large metropolis. I haven't read this beforehand. I knew I was going to mess it up. Houston is a large metropolis in Texas, extending to Galveston Bay. It's closely linked with the Space Center Houston, the Coastal Visitor Center at NASA's Astronaut Training and Flight Control Complex. The city's relative relatively compact downtown includes the Theater District, home to the renowned Houston Grand Opera, and the Historic District with 19th century architecture and upscale restaurants. Does that sound? I forgot about NASA. Is
Yep.
that something? Do like launches happen there?
No, the launches happen in the Cape Cod. I'm sorry, not Cape Cod, Cape Canaveral,
Right.
in Florida. Yeah, and so Mission Control is NASA, so that's where they do all the controlling, to the shuttle and all the communications. And I grew up not even one long road off of NASA. That's where my folks live. And so, being in a aeronautical, space type environment, I loved it. I always would go visit the NASA Johnson Space Center is what it's called. And they have this cool little, things for kids and take your families out there. They had the, actual shuttle on the property where you can view it from the road. They also have tours out there, rockets. They have some rockets out there, and yeah, it's pretty neat to say I grew up next to NASA, and I knew families with their parents either as astronauts or working in mission control. I have some friends from church who are also mission control employees, and they talk about space all the time. And I'm not a big space guy. I just like the idea of it, from afar. But I always like to call them every now and then just to get an update of like the space program and what they're doing next. And and of course they love to geek out on it and talk my ear off, which I'm okay with too. So
They might be getting job offers from private companies soon. All those
yeah.
people, there's competition for NASA these days. Might even be better funding at other places.
Yeah.
But so this kind of is going to lead into my first question here about the landscape. Is there a reason it's there? Is it really flat and there's good for communication because there's no mountains blocking anything, or what's the landscape like? Is it flat? Obviously, you're talking about mountain biking, so there's some kind of hills or something around.
Yes, unfortunately, Houston is flat. Maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I love hills and mountains, but yeah, we're pretty flat. Where I'm at in Houston Heights, the reason why it's called the Heights is it's 23 feet higher than downtown. So, which is great when we have hurricanes and floods and everything. Our last big flood was Hurricane Harvey that flooded. It was our 500-year flood. That occurred in 2017, and but my area did not flood. The streets were flooded, but the houses were okay. But the landscapes, we touched on a little bit about it. It has a lot of erosion, a lot of sand, it's not really dirt. It's more like a sand type feel to it. And yeah, there are certain types, different areas here, like the Memorial Park. We have these small little hills, but nothing to say, oh wow, that was a big climb or anything. But once you go east towards Austin, that's where you get a lot of the elevation, more of the hill country, San Antonio, north of San Antonio. Then that's when you get more of the long stretches of maybe a 300-400 foot climb on a hill or something like that. So, but
That
for
makes
the
sense because you mentioned you go mountain biking in Austin or something, right?
yeah. But here it's in Houston, it's more cross country, the flat land, and our trails are great. So we try to put little obstacle things in it, and we'll put a little log in front of it so you can just bunny hop of it, and but yeah, I mean, it's still fun. We have a great time, but yeah, for the most part, Houston is flat.
And then what are the trees like? Is it like palm trees? Is it like beachy kind of thing? Or what are the trees and the shrubbery like? Tropical in nature?
I
Or
want to say they're like pine trees, because we get a lot of the pine needles. We have a lot of oak trees here. And yeah, so in the Huntsville State Park, you get a lot of the pine, a lot of the oak. Mainly more of the pine. In this neighborhood, it's a lot of oak.
okay.
Trees. But yeah.
So
and then,
similar. So you do have the big trees. Like that's my gripe in Florida. You can't even go hike it. There's no place to hike at all. Everything's just open. Even the trees they have don't really block much, and everything's low lying. And so you're kind of in a nicer, hotter climate, but you still have the benefit of these big big
Yeah.
trees that we have in the north too, I guess.
With the shade too covering us. I love to be in the shade when it hits 95 degrees. And I usually try to start my bike rides in the morning, because once it hits 8 or 9, forget it. It's already about 85, 90 degrees humidity, and you're suffering. So yeah, being in the shade it definitely helps.
Well, that's a perfect segue into what's the weather and climate like. So you touched
Yeah.
on it gets a little bit hot. You're down there, I mean, almost as south as Florida. You are south with Florida, right? So it's hot there year round.
Yeah, yeah, and I was looking at it. We get about 105 days of 90 degree plus weather. Okay. So I mean, I love the hot weather. I'm acclimated to it already. And the climate is a humidity, which I like as well. It's not dry. And really, for somebody to come and visit for an extended period of time, I would probably get some dry fit clothes that, if they get wet or sweaty, it'll be okay versus cotton. A lot of, like, my pants and my jerseys or my workout clothes are that dry fit material. And yeah, the weather's great here. I mean, even right now, even December, we're still in the 70s. I think we're supposed to get a cold front, but it really doesn't get back as cold, like
So what? It'll be like 63
yeah,
or something.
yeah, that's our cold front. Yeah, so but it gives us a great break from the heat, which I like as well. So
Yeah, that's great. And then what about, you touched on hurricanes. Obviously, you do get hurricanes.
yeah.
Is it a frequent thing? Is it something that you have to worry about a lot? Do you have insurance for that type of thing?
Yeah, the flood insurance companies, which we can identify wherever you're thinking about buying. I can see where you're at on the map on a flood zone. If you're in a floodplain, flood zone, there's a 100-year flood, there's a 200-year flood, and a 500-year flood. And so those ranks in different layers. And so depending on where you want to buy or sell, we have to provide, a flood type informative sheet that, yeah, we are in a flood zone. These are the addendums that about, and making sure the buyer and the seller know about the transaction, the level of where they're at. But yeah, we have floodplains here. We have the homes. We have a dam, the Barker Dam that lines the area. There are homes back there, but again, it good irrigation out here. Good irrigation. The hurricane season starts, I believe, in August, is what we talked about. August, and then kind of the beginning of the summer, and it ends at the end of November. So those times, my area, the Houston, is does a really good job of informing, reminding us community members that, heck, like, okay, we're a month prior to hurricane season. Get your batteries, get your, charge everything, have, your plan to evacuate if you need to. And during Hurricane Harvey, the 500-year flood, it flooded everywhere. When I'm talking about everywhere, it flooded everywhere. So I was still above ground, and I had a Jeep that sat about a good, I want to say, foot to foot and a half. So I went around to just make sure everyone was good. I didn't go into any deep water that I thought was unsafe, but I knew some friends from college who needed to get out of their homes that were stuck in the water, literally sitting in the water, because we had the Coast Guard come out and, rescue these folks out of their homes. And so they were on the list, but they were waiting for hours. There's so many boats. So what I did was I just went out and I saw this guy that we still talk to today, and he had one of those orange rescue boats that he was pulling. And I flagged him down. I was like, "Hey man, where you going?" He's like, "I don't know. I just seeing if anybody needs it." So I said, "Look, I know a whole neighborhood that needs it." And he goes, "Okay, let's go. Follow me." We went to the neighborhood. I parked my car in a high piece of ground property, and we dropped that sucker in this road that usually is busy, that was underwater. And we motored up onto like as many neighborhoods or as many homes as we can get. And we had to break down a fence to get through it, but we rescued, I don't know, like 12, 15 houses before, Coast Guard actually came in and got more people out. So,
Wow. So with hurricanes and extreme weather like that, how does that affect the construction of the houses? Do you have shutters that close? Do you have basements, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, we don't have basements. That'd probably be the worst thing because that make the house flood. But now what people are doing is they're lifting their homes up, an extra 2 to 3 inches, sometimes 4. And in the bad areas that really flooded, they're like at least 5 or 6 feet high. Like so, but yeah, I mean that was the 500-year flood. I mean, we have, contingencies here on how to help mitigate that. They passed a flood bond to help improve the irrigation on the streets, which has been going on now for 3 or 4 years now, which, they're actually doing something about it to help the flow of the water when it does rain for, a period of time, to help combat that. So.
What about the construction of the houses themselves? Like in Florida, I see a lot of like block being used and stucco, and there's this kind of like hot climate way of building houses, which here in Pennsylvania, it's all stick built. Nothing's being built with any cinder blocks and drive it or stucco run for the hills. I don't want to see it anywhere if possible. So what's the construction of like the structure like?
Yeah, sure. Well, most of them are either on pier and beam or foundation. And so, yeah, we do have the shutters. Like my folks' house, they have a option where we can put a board over and the shutters to kind of nail it tight for, the windows don't be broken. So yeah, there are homes set up for that. And for the foundation, they've had been lifted and on pier and beam. So it's a little bit higher to keep them off the ground if there was a chance for a flood. So.
And then any winter at all? Do you get snow, sleet, freezing rain, hail, any kind of frozen substance falling from the sky ever?
Oh my gosh. So we had our another incident, a freeze, our Texas freeze that happened in February. And I was aware, but either I forgot because I was getting a house under contract, and our power grid failed because it was so cold, and I think it was all over Houston and surrounding areas, and we didn't have power for 4 days, and it was on and off, and it busted a lot of people's pipes. And so that would maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing to help, because a lot of the homes here have been either around the 1900s built and that, they haven't been restored. So, but yeah, that was our major winter, storm, and the power grid shut down. So I did see a report somewhere in the news that they're getting ready to help, or at least have a plan for when it does get cold, or the improvements from this past year's winter storm that we had. But yeah, we do get ice and sleet and hail, a lot of hail, and some snow to stick around. But yeah, that weekend that it froze, there was a lot of snow, and I have video on that on my IG and in my Facebook.
Well, at least, like you said, at least it's on their radar, pun intended, that it could happen. It's not like it could never happen or never get that cold. Now they have some kind of plan in place for it, hopefully. But I'm guessing still in places like that, when it snows or something, they just shut everything down. Not like here where life goes on, nothing stops unless it's a certain amount. But places like that, it probably everybody stopped doing what you're doing. So what is actually, that's a good segue into the commute. So how far are people driving usually? And do people that work in Houston live in Houston, or are they living in the suburbs? Or tell us about the commute in general.
Yeah, it's a good question. The commute here, usually a lot of folks live out in the suburbs, which is, during rush hour, either morning or afternoon, it's a good hour. You want to leave an hour prior, because a regular commute would take about 25 to 35 minutes without traffic. And of course, rush hour is way different. So I would buffer 45 minutes to an hour prior if you needed to either drive in the city or out of the city. And the local travel, I try to stay within my bubble of city. We have the loop, which is the 610 loop, which is a smaller loop, and it goes all around the city. It's just a big loop, and it's 610 loop. I try to stay within that loop. I I buy groceries in the loop, I eat, and I do all my extracurricular activities. And then we have the Beltway, which is the tollway, which is a larger loop that encompasses more of the city. And I also sell that out there as well. And that is just another big loop that will connect you to wherever part of the city that you're looking for. And the local travel within the city, we have these cool little hike and bike trails where you can commute on bike if you live close enough, or maybe if you live, I would say 10 miles away from your work. If you can definitely ride a bike, we have some really great bike paths that the city put in about a good 5 years ago that have still been adding on. They're digging out a lot more hike and bike trails that are extending a little bit farther northeast to the northeast side. And then that'll drop you right into the city, like literally right into downtown. You take one path from the northeast side and it stretches now 12 miles north, and then it'll drop you in. And of course, there's these cool little exits where it's like exit to Washington Street, exit to this side of town. So, so you can have a nice little commute. So commuting by bike is still possible. But yeah, the commute by vehicle, by car, is pretty rough because we are the fourth largest city that is really busy. So
I was going to say it's a pretty large city, so it makes sense. It doesn't seem too crazy for 30, 40 an hour to get somewhere. That doesn't seem too crazy. And the bikes everywhere is getting more bike friendly, especially with the e-bikes coming along and people commuting with the e-bikes. I haven't caved and gotten one yet, but I've heard a couple of hardcore mountain bikers because I was thinking like, I'm not getting that's some sissy stuff, but they're like, no dude, it's fun too because it makes you like Superman and you can go out on the trail and like just ride up the mountain like it's nothing, and you can still barrel down, and you could do 100 miles in a day instead of maybe doing the 20 or 10 or whatever. So that sounds super great. What about public transportation, buses, trains, subways, any of that kind of stuff going?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we do have a big bus transportation. It's called Metro bus, and it definitely cycles throughout the city. And when I was living in Clear Lake getting my second degree, we have a bus station that is, you can park your car there if you live out in the suburbs or outside the city that you want to get in. You park your car, and in the mornings, of course, they have more buses rotating in the mornings to shuttle whoever that needs it in the mornings. And I think it runs every 8 minutes, and then later in the day it'll get longer. So that's a really good idea if someone's coming in and wants to live, get more space, get more dollar for their buck, and get a bigger home, and they don't want to live in the city. You have the bus system to shuttle you, from the outside of Houston into, your work. It'll drop you into downtown. There's different connections. You can walk across the street to wherever. So there's that option. We also have the Metro Rail, which has been around for a little while. And it starts at the medical center and it goes all the way up. And that's where I used to actually get my second degree. And I would get dropped off at the bus station, walk 2 blocks, hop on the train to get into the medical center. And so, I think my whole fare was maybe like $3 for that day, but it's very reasonable. And that train will stretch from all throughout downtown through the east side. And then there's one little connection. You could take that up to the University of Houston. And if say you're going to school and then you want to, you need to go to work, you can take that train either downtown or wherever you work close to the rail line. So yeah, the train system is really great. And I hear that they're trying to get a bullet train started. I don't know when that's
like across
happen.
All of Texas.
From Dallas to Austin to Houston. And I've been hearing stories of that. I really wish they would start that because, I'd love to go to Austin, maybe Dallas, but I'm not a Dallas fan of any sports, but that's another conversation. But because we're rivals, Houston and Dallas. But yeah, that's what I hear. So hopefully stay tuned and have something hopefully different to report next time we meet.
Huh. Well, somebody has to pay for it. So if it's a public works thing, you're going to pay for it. And if it's private, hopefully it's private. So But then you're going to have to pay to use it. I guess you would pay to use it either way. But all right, well, so who are or where are the people commuting to? What are the major industries, employers? You mentioned a medical center, and we all have medical centers and expanding medical centers everywhere. I mentioned you went to the University of Houston, so obviously you have that university and probably other colleges and things. And NASA, you mentioned NASA. So what else is there? Corporate headquarters? Is it a port city? Logistics? Where's everybody working?
Yeah. I like the fact that you brought up port because we import-export industry is huge, especially, the Channelview area and different parts where, kind of in the backside of, I want to say Kima on the east side of that, there's a huge port that it's a big industry there. Primarily we're energy and oil and gas industry. Particularly oil and a lot of the big campuses like the Exxons and everything and Marathon Oil. I mean, their big campuses are either in the Woodlands, Texas, or in the energy corridor, which that's coined mainly a lot of the energy, the oil and gas energy. Big campuses are there that have their employees there, and then there's a great community that lives right behind it. So it backs up. It's off of I-10, which is the main interstate that stretches from, I want to say, the west coast of the country to the east coast of the country. It stretches as long as super far. So, and also healthcare, which is my first career. And we have one of the largest healthcare facilities here. A lot of people from all over the world come down to get treated, whether it's cancer, orthopedic, respiratory, anything under the sun. We have one of the best healthcare facilities, also biomedical research, and different leading of that would be like amputation type limbs that, either that are hooked into sensories in the body. There's a lot of new developments on, those kind of biomedical research that have helped patients out and get through back up in life. And then also, of course, we talked about NASA. The aerospace industry is really big here. So a lot of people from all over, like it's in the suburbs that, that I want to live out there, bigger house, bigger space. They definitely commute into those areas. So.
And what about tourism? Any tourism going on at all? It's obviously a little bit
Yeah.
better weather than here, so I could see people coming from here to there maybe.
Yeah, the tourist industry is amazing here. I mean, even to when you look up, people say, "Oh, I don't want to go to the touristy spots. I just go one of the local spots." The local spots are the touristy spots, right? And they're set up in a way to where you feel at home, you feel part of the city, right? We have over 70 different cultures in our city. We're one of the most diverse cultures. And when I went to University of Houston, there was over 30 cultures. It probably grew then. And I graduated more than 10 years ago. But as far as the tourists, I mean, when people come visit, they come visit for, they want to visit the Bay. We have Kima, the boardwalk. They want to go to Galveston. And if he still had the boardwalk there, Tim and Fertitta built a great touristy spot there. The local restaurants, when they come into town, they can just dine in any restaurant. I would choose a local spots versus, the chain ones. But and we have one of the largest shopping centers here. It's called the Galleria. And the Galleria has over, I want to say 300 stores, and it has an ice skating rink inside. So if you want to do some ice skating, you could definitely do that. So interesting stores. Either if you want to go to the local spots for either fine dining, casual dining, or patio cafes, we have it all. And we touched a little bit about the arts in the museum district. We have one solid museum district that stretches so many blocks here, and it's called the Museum of Fine Arts, the MFA. And they usually present a lot of the the upcoming art that travels all around the country or the world. And we have also the health and medical, the health museum, also that it introduces. We had the body works on what they would actually have real cadavers out there that looks what looks like inside of a body. And we had the Arboretum, the plant museums and everything. And then we have a second little, I wouldn't say a museum, but more of a district that's close. It's called the Sawyer Yards, and it's off of Summer and Winter Street. And there are these big silos that have been reconstructed into these studios where artists will rent a space and, you know, do their thing, do their arts, do their jewelry, do mixed media. And once a month, and I only live like 3 minutes north of here, I can ride my bike there. Once a month, they'll open up their doors. I believe it's the second Saturday, and it's usually from 1 to 5, and they'll open up their doors and present their art, whatever they're working on, and you know, do more of like a local art market fair. And I can't go there anymore because I will buy tons more art. Like all of my walls are filled. Like I've got paintings right now sitting on the floor waiting to get tacked up. So, but anyone interested in that, the art scene is big, the eateries, the business, everything. I mean, we just have it all here. So.
And then what about vacations? Let's start with drive. Obviously, you got an airport, a huge airport. Everybody flies through there to go everywhere else. So if you were to go somewhere else, you can fly easily from there. But if you are driving to a vacation, where are you going usually?
So yeah, in Houston, in my area, we have these historic homes, these bed and breakfasts, and sometimes the Airbnbs around here, and they look like these beautiful Victorian homes, right? Something you see out of a motion picture movie, and they're so well kept. So a lot of folks there, they'll come in and they will rent, you know, the bed and breakfast or the Airbnb out for, you know, a weekend, and they could either rent a bike, or, you know, get a cab out to downtown, and or, you know, either get a spot in the city, which, you know, kind of back there, there's these high rise, you know, the Four Seasons is great to get that feel of the city life when you step outside the street. And there's also a little bit outside the city, like we talked about Huntsville State Park. You could definitely rent a cottage out there and kind of get lost in the forest. But yeah, I mean, a lot of spots here to vacation. Even down in Galveston, you could rent a beach house, you know, for the weekend for the family. And they're not just small little things. They're widespread. They have about 4 or 5 bedrooms. And they're built on stilts as like a normal beach house would be. And, you know, you could definitely rent jet skis to little fishing boats and all that. So those are some great options for Kemah, and then also Galveston Bay. So
Nice. And you answered one of my questions was going to be, are there beaches to go to? So there are beaches where, like a typical beach that people would picture close by?
Yeah. So we have the popular ones called East Beach. Do we have Jamaica Beach? And those are the main spots that, you know, usually Mardi Gras will happen during Mardi Gras season. I believe it's in February, March. And that's, well, people from the South, like that's our big thing. And they'll have a big, you know, festival and parades that go down the seawall. And the seawall is this long strip that lines the ocean. And then down there, it has this wall that keeps the water out, of course. And so then that's where the beaches are to go out and get a tan, enjoy the weather, enjoy the experience. So, yeah,
That's great. You can hit up the trails or the beach within not very far. That's like the best of all worlds. And it's not cloudy all the time like it is here. Although it said it was cloudy today, but that's all right. What was I going to say? Oh, last thing, stadium. So what do you got? You have professional sports teams in Houston, obviously. So you got a bunch of stadiums to choose from if Justin Bieber or some big act comes to town.
Oh yeah. We have the Reliance Stadium and NRG Park. So that's kind of the main hub, and that's where the Texans play. And that's, you know, either if there's a sporting event, we had the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is one of the largest livestock show and rodeo there is, I want to say, in the country.
The largest one is in Harrisburg.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that
I don't know. I don't know that as a fact, but I know we have one of the largest one. People come from all around to our farm show complex.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna look that up. See who has a bigger one.
Yeah, well, I'll get back to you, but it is a big deal. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo happens at the stadium, the Energy Park, the Reliance Stadium, and you know we've got the shows, and you know all about it. You got the shows, you got the livestock, carnivals is a big thing. We also had the Toyota Stadium, which is Toyota Center, which is also housed for the Houston Rockets, but also there's concerts in there, of course, different conventions. And then we have George R. Brown Convention is one of our largest ones, and that's just mainly used for like the expo, different types of business conventions. It can be broken up into different sections, and that's within the city and downtown. It's more on the east side of the downtown. And then we have Dynamo Stadium. We have MLS soccer stadium, which is a pretty neat setup. It's not like an outdoor, but an indoor. It's kind of like both, so to speak. And so it gives that like outdoor feel. And it's very colorful. They're orange and white. And that's kind of what the stadium looks like. And then what else do we have? Toyota Center, and we talked about the GRB, it's George R. Brown. And I think that's it. I mean, like, a lot of those stadiums house a lot of the concerts, a lot of the expos, the Livestock show and Rodeo, everything that Houston has to offer. So,
yeah, like you said, we've said a few times, Houston's a pretty giant city, so there's plenty to do, and you probably have no shortage of anything to do there. And once you start driving out of Houston into Texas, I'm sure that opens up a whole world of other things to do as well. And now we'll talk about the last thing people need to know if they're going to try to move there is what are they going to get for their money. Maybe we'll start with what's an entry level kind of home start at there. Here, I'd say 250, 300 will get you kind of the entry level, 1 to 2 car garage, 3 to maybe 4 bedrooms on a 0.2 acre lot. What are they getting there for that? Or can they even get something for 300?
Yeah. So good question, because our average prices have, well, they're about 377 right now. In the summer, they're about 395. They were pretty high. It's dropped a bit, but the market's still pretty strong. We still have low inventory, kind of what you're saying. Inventory is still super low. So if anyone's still, thinking about making a move and selling, now is the time. So, but yeah, so around in this area, not so much, because the average price is a little bit higher, but outside, more like in the suburbs where you can get more bang for your buck. Probably between 3 to 325 can get you a nice 3-2 bedroom. Usually the lots are around at least 5,000 square foot lot, and that'll get you something comparable to where that family, if you're either have a family or you're looking to have one, that single family home feel with a nice yard space. Now the more you get closer in the city, you get less space, of course. There's some spaces still left out there that you can get, a decent sized yard at around 5,000 to 7,500 square feet. But the price jumps up a little bit. So just depending on where you're, what area. In my area, the average price is around 330,000. And that's without being updated. That's without being modern. If you want something updated and modern, you're looking at, 400 and up. So, which is still pretty affordable from what I've heard from people from California and New York. That's, definitely affordable.
Yeah, from California and New York, everything is affordable, and it sounds pretty affordable compared to Central PA too, really. So it doesn't sound too bad. What if somebody wanted like 5-10 acres, wanted a bunch of land? How far out could they get that kind of property within that hour drive, or would they have to go out further?
Yeah, I want to say a good 45 minutes, an hour, they can still get some acreage for an affordable price. I'm actually working on a listing right now, and he has a little bit under 2 acres, which you could definitely on the 3/4 acre, you could definitely build 6 townhomes. 6 townhomes on that thing. So yeah, and he's only about less than 20 minutes away from the city, and just around that pocket of area, it's in a city called Pearland, Texas. Which is, not too far of a commute. It's about a 20-minute, less than 30-minute drive, but there are still acreages, land there that are still pretty affordable that you can probably get under 500K. And you can definitely build on top of that. A lot of the land here is unrestricted, so you can do whatever you want. and yeah,
Wasn't that
they
part of a problem that there just was no zoning at all or
yeah.
something, and there's things were happening, and they were like, well, maybe we should have some rules. There's still like no
Yeah.
rules, really?
Yeah, no, yeah, there's zoning, but there's that part of land, unrestricted. You can do whatever you want. But yeah, there's zonings and different parts of the neighborhood, and depending on what you want. The current listing that I have now that it's under contract, there's no restrictions. So if somebody wanted to come in and turn the house into a commercial space, they can definitely do that. And that's only about 8 minutes away from me, about 8 minutes away from downtown. So
Sounds like a
yeah.
pretty sweet property. That's a nice
Yeah.
listing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then what about HOAs? Here we have HOAs, but they're nothing like Florida or Myrtle Beach or somewhere where it's gated and they've got a golf course and a restaurant and a clubhouse, and the fee is like $300-400 a month. Here, if you got an HOA, there are probably no amenities. It's just to take care of the monument sign at the entrance, maybe some common areas. If it's a townhouse, probably lawn and snow. $80 to maybe $150 a month. If it's below 80, I'm asking questions. If it's above 150-ish, I'm probably asking questions. So tell me the HOA situation there and the
Yeah.
gatedness or not gatedness.
Good question, because yeah, it depends on where you go. Like so kind of in my parents' neighborhood, it's really nice setup. When you drive in, you can just see everything well groomed. So that HOA it's probably, I want to say, between it fluctuates between 800 to maybe 1,100 a year. And then inside the city, of course, it's not as much as HOA. But the farther you go out, of course, you get more land and dollar for your home. There will be some type of HOA. I want to say it hovers probably between 7 to, you may be paying 1,500 for that. So, but
Yeah,
I
not too
mean,
bad.
paying for your neighbor to look nice, to all those nice amenities, like you talked about the clubhouse, you talk about the pools and the parks, and somewhere to take your child or children, or your significant other. We have an abundance of parks here in Houston. So.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of HOAs. I have people that balk at them. What do you want? Your neighbor painting their house bright pink? I mean,
Yeah.
the rules are good for everybody. People don't leave their trash cans out in the front. I've been yelled at specifically for that before in an HOA, leaving it out past the day of trash or whatever. I get that notice, but it keeps everything nice and everybody obeying the rules and whatnot. And now, before we close it out, we'll ask you a question that has nothing to do with real estate or Houston or anything else, but does have to do with you. If you could do any other thing, have any other profession, what would it be?
Oh, I love this question. I would totally be some type of trail guide for a mountain bike trail, and take a group out and do a camping session, for 4 or 5 days, or do a hike and bike, where you take your mountain bikes and go through a trail out. Here we talked about Huntsville a lot, so I'm really familiar with the trails. You can camp here. So, take a group out to go camping and for, 3-4 hours at a time. Then we go back to the campsite. There's places where you can canoe, have a good time, and then do it all over again, or set up a campfire and then do it all over again the next day. So, that was something I would love to do. Either that and be an animal rescue leader, or own some kind of animal rescue sanctuary where house all the stray whatever, to help them, scoot them along or give them somewhere to live that's safe. So
Yeah, you're speaking my language with the outdoor guiding thing. I'd be all about that. And I've done some in my time, and I still do some sometimes. And if you ever come up to Central PA, I'll hook you up with whatever kind of adventure you want to get hooked up with. And I've never gone, though. Our local association does a bike packing trip on, there's one of the IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association's epic trails that they name like certain ones around the world, epic trails. We have one here, and they do a bike packing trip there, but I've never done it. So you'll have to, if you do one, you can let me know what it's like to ride a bike with a pack on. I don't think I really want to. Plus, I could do the whole trail they're doing in one day. So you're kind of like sleeping out there for no reason, but whatever.
Right.
So read your information aloud here so that anybody that might be listening rather than watching can jot it down if they need to. It will also be in the description, obviously, but say it aloud for everybody, your phone number and email and website and everything.
For sure. Yeah. If anyone is thinking about making a move to Houston or out of Houston, please give me a call. If you just want to ask questions about the city, of course. And a big thing is, a lot of the questions are, where is a good place to move? And well, I definitely have to get to know more about you, your goals, your family setup, or if you're a single person, kind of your interests, right? And make sure that I can find the best spot that you may like. And we can schedule something out. My contact is 281-455-8412. My good email for me is Armando E at 1868@gmail.com. It's Armando E 1868@gmail.com. And then my company email is armando.espinosa.exprealty.com. That'll definitely shoot it up to my other Gmail. But yeah, anyone thinking about making a move, the city's great. There's a lot of influx of people, interest coming here. And definitely the state. I know Elon Musk just transferred all of his factories over here to Texas. What's his name? Joe Rogan moved to Austin in Texas. So a lot of folks are coming this way. They're understanding the value of the community, the land. We have a lot to offer, especially Houston is very diverse, a lot of ideas, a lot of different things to live off from. So definitely appreciate you having me on, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And if you want to join the biggest podcaster in the game, you can join him in Texas, right? I think he's the biggest. Joe's the biggest podcaster. Or has the something. I know he has a giant contract with whatever, with Spotify or something.
Spotify,
whatever.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
if you need to hit up Armando, his information is on the screen. It's in the descriptions, or you can listen back, or you just Google him. Any of us realtors should be easy to find when you Google us. If not, there's a problem. And contact me if you need to buy or sell a home in central Pennsylvania or anywhere in the world, and I can connect you with Armando or somebody wherever you need to move to. You can call me, text me, email me, throw a rock through my window, send a carrier pigeon, whatever you need to do. We still need inventory. Not quite as badly, but still badly here in December 2021. I don't know about when you're watching this, but reach out to one of us. Thanks for watching and listening, and say goodbye, Armando.
All right, guys. This is Armando Espinosa from Houston, Texas, the Buffalo Bio City, Space City.